500 rainbow trout, belly up. That's the first thing I saw when I walked out to my dock that morning, just a sheet of dead silver floating on Clearwater Lake like some kind of biblical plague, only stinkier. And let me tell you, the smell, it wasn't just bad, it punched me right in the gut. I stood there, half awake, still in my boots, breathing in that rotten metallic air, knowing in an instant that 5 years of sweat pain and more paperwork than you can imagine had just gone up in smoke. Or, well, up in dead fish. I'm Ezra Blackwood, disabled Army vet, for whatever that's worth to some people. 5 years ago, I started building this trout farm out here on my grandpa's land up in Montana, where the lake is so clear you can see 20 feet down. At least you could before today. Most folks inherit china cabinets or old photos. You know, I got a 200-acre ranch and a chance to start over after my left leg was shredded in Afghanistan. The government's thank you for your service check barely covered my meds, let alone a place to live. But this land, it felt like hope. So what do I find at 7 a.m.? Delilah Thornfield, HOA president, morning coffee in hand, smile like a shark standing at the end of my dock, watching my disaster like it's the 4th of July parade. Maybe now you'll shut down this disgusting fish operation, she sneers, like my dead fish are some sort of personal favor to her. That's when it hit me. She'd done it. 40 pounds of copper sulfate dumped into my lake at 2 in the damn morning. Poison. Environmental terrorism, but dressed up as neighborhood improvement. She did it just to keep folks from fishing where she could see them out her big, expensive windows. And when I told her, voice shaking, "You have no idea what you've just done," she just laughed. I solved a neighborhood problem. She turned and strutted back up the hill like she'd just finished planting roses instead of killing $500,000 in trout. Here's the thing. What Delilah didn't know, what she could never have imagined, was that her little act of chemical warfare was about to destroy her in ways she'd never see coming. And yeah, I know that sounds dramatic, but trust me. Sometimes karma comes in the form of geology and cold hard facts, and she just set the whole avalanche in motion. Let me back up, fill you in on how a control freak, suburbanite, declared war on a broken down vet, and by the time she finished, ended up burning her own house down in the process. Like I said, I'm Ezra. 20 years Army Engineer Corps. One stupid step on a dusty Afghan road, and that was the end of my career. Came home, limped through a few years, then got the call that Grandpa had passed, left me this stretch of Montana land, 40-acre lake and all. That lake was something else. Sat 300 feet up from the valley, fed by springs, older than the country itself. Most folks saw a place to fish, maybe toss a beer in the water, and talk about the good old days. Me, I saw survival. Spent 2 years learning aquaculture, another fighting for permits, and the rest building pens, learning to keep fish alive through blizzards and wildfires. By year 5, I'd built something. A real business. $180,000 in trout breeding stock, a handful of locals working part-time, and the sound of trout jumping in the dawn was better than any alarm clock. That's when the California invasion hit. You know the type. 47 McMansions, all with big wraparound decks, and million-dollar views popping up on the old Tatum Ranch next door. They called it Willowbrook Estates, sold rural charm to folks who'd never fixed a fence post in their lives. Each house had a price tag bigger than my entire ranch. But here's what none of them knew, their precious well water. It all started in my lake, filtered down through caves and limestone, winding up in their faucets every single morning. Did Delilah know that when she moved in? Doubt it. But she learned eventually. Delilah, well, picture a 58-year-old with hair like a helmet and the soul of a corporate compliance officer. She'd spent 30 years in San Francisco collecting violations the way some folks collect stamps. Got rejected 3 times from the Bitterroot Angling Club, too. Apparently didn't understand fishing etiquette, which is a polite way of saying nobody liked her. So when my little trout business started drawing in happy customers, it tripped something in her control freak brain. Suddenly my lake was an eyesore. My clients were unruly strangers. My entire livelihood was a threat to her peace and quiet. The neighborhood split down the middle. Old-timers folks like Tom and Sarah Tatum stood by me. They knew what it meant to work the land. The new money crowd, they just wanted me and my fish gone. First shot came on a random Tuesday. I was feeding the trout when Delilah marched right up in a suit that probably cost more than my truck waving a manila folder. "Mr. Blackwood, your fishing circus ends today." She wasn't even on my property, but you'd have thought she was General Patton. "You're violating Covenant 4.7b. All fishing activities must cease. You'll install an 8-foot privacy fence, estimate 47 grand. 30 days, or we bury you in lawsuits." She left the soldier boy unsaid, but it hung in the air like gunpowder. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the feed bucket. "Ma'am, this is my property. Your rules don't reach out here." Her smile, cold enough to freeze the lake. "Watch me prove you wrong," she said. And with that, the war was on. She came at me with everything: county zoning complaints, environmental violations, business license challenges. My mailbox started to look like a shredder. You'd have thought I was running a meth lab instead of a fish farm. But here's the twist. The first time the county inspector rolled up, I about had a heart attack. Then I noticed the Marine Corps tattoo peeking out from his sleeve. "Sergeant First Class," I said, sticking out my hand. He grinned, and just like that, the whole tone changed. Jake Morrison. He'd seen Delilah's kind before newcomers, with money using bureaucracy as a weapon. We spent an hour talking shop while he checked every inch of my operation. Water quality, perfect. Permits rock solid. Fish happiness documentation. Yes, apparently that's a thing, spotless. Jake filed his report, calling my farm a model for sustainable practices. He even flagged Delilah's obvious targeting of a disabled veteran. That report nuked her credibility. For once, the system worked for the little guy, Delilah. She snapped. The very next week, she escalated to the state environmental agency, screaming groundwater contamination. Never mind that my lake was cleaner than most bottled water. That's when she crossed the line from bureaucratic bully to full-blown villain. One morning, I'm fixing a timer on the feeding system, and 3 black SUVs roll up my drive. 6 guys in tactical gear, private security, not real cops, start treating me like Pablo Escobar. Delilah struts up waving a clipboard. "Document all fishing equipment," she barks. "Mr. Blackwood needs an education in compliance." The nerve of this woman hiring rent-a-cops to intimidate a disabled vet on his own property. I called Jake, put him on speaker so everyone could hear. 30 minutes later, he showed up with 2 deputies and told Delilah's goons to beat it or face trespassing charges. The sight of her face as her operation retreated worth every ounce of misery she'd caused me. Next time I told her maybe hire people who know the law. She just hissed, "This isn't over." She wasn't lying. A week later, Billy Redstone, local fishing guide, called in a panic. "Ezra, she's blocking the road. Posted guard signs, the whole 9 yards. Turning away my clients like we're trying to rob the place." Sure enough, she'd hired security to man a fake private property checkpoint on a public easement. The best part: that public access was protected by federal law. Billy's clients were from out of state. Blocking them wasn't just rude, it was a federal crime under the Commerce Clause. The next escalation was a nuisance lawsuit, 50 grand, and damages 23 pages of legal fantasy. The strategy was obvious: bury me in court, bleed me dry, hope I'd quit. But this is where the cavalry arrived, only not the kind you'd expect. Emma Vasquez, local reporter, former military spouse, tough as nails. She'd been covering rural gentrification, and when she heard about Delilah's blockade, she smelled blood. Showed up with a photographer, caught one of Delilah's guards, turning away a disabled veteran, and his grandson, kid couldn't have been 8, tears in his eyes because he just wanted to catch a trout. Emma snapped the shot that went viral: American injustice, pure and simple. Emma cornered Delilah on camera, hit her with federal statutes about public easements. Given your regulatory experience, you must know blocking public access violates interstate commerce law, right? Delilah's fake smile cracked. Within 48 hours, the county attorney ordered the blockade down, or else. Delilah's status as community leader turned to internet joke overnight, memes, boycotts, angry neighbors. Normal people would have given up. Delilah doubled down. I got a call late one evening from Margaret Wu, the HOA treasurer. Delilah's authorizing an emergency algae treatment, she whispered, nervous. Says your lake is contaminating our groundwater. Ordered 40 pounds of copper sulfate. My blood turned cold. That much copper sulfate wouldn't just treat algae, it would sterilize a lake. The perfect crime for someone who didn't know aquatic science, but was desperate to win. I spent 3 nights patrolling the property, checking motion sensors, sleeping with the windows open. She struck on a moonless Tuesday, caught on my wildlife camera, a shadow in a kayak, dumping bag after bag into the lake. By morning, the damage was done. Trout floated everywhere. 5 years of work gone. I felt like I'd taken shrapnel all over again. Billy showed up, took photos, called the wildlife officer, Rebecca Torres. She ran tests, copper levels off the charts. This wasn't an accident, she said. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. And then we found the kicker. Delilah had used the HOA credit card for the chemical purchase. Her signature, her face on the supply store's security camera. As subtle as a brick through a window. But here's the real twist. Those underground springs that fed Willowbrook's private wells, the same ones Delilah just poisoned. 6 to 8 weeks, Dr. Foster, the local hydrogeologist, told us, and every house in Willowbrook would be sipping copper sulfate cocktails right out of their taps. We documented everything. Wildlife cam footage, purchase records, water test results. Emma wrote the story that exploded statewide. HOA, President Poison's own community's water supply. Delilah's empire of intimidation crumbled overnight. So what do you do standing on a ruined dock, staring at a lake of dead fish, knowing you could let revenge finish the job? I had every reason to keep quiet, let her poison flow downstream. But kids live in those homes, old folks. People who, yeah, they sided with her, but didn't deserve to get sick because of her hatred. We built the perfect demonstration. 2 aquariums, one with clean spring water, one with Willowbrook's well water spiked with copper sulfate, same as what they'd be drinking soon. 6 trout in each. At the annual HOA meeting, with cameras rolling, I added the trout. The ones in the copper tank started dying almost instantly, flipping belly up for all to see. No charts, no jargon, just the plain fact that Delilah's war on fishing had poisoned her own neighbors. Then came the handcuffs. FBI, county deputies, the whole 9 yards. Environmental terrorism, conspiracy, bribery, they had it all on tape. The final cherry on top, I poured Delilah a glass from the contaminated tank. You say it's safe. Take a drink. She couldn't even look at it. 18 months later, Clearwater Lake sparkles again, cleaner than ever. FEMA trucks rolled in, the community rebuilt, not with lawyers, but with neighbors learning how to work together for the first time. The HOA is gone, replaced by an environmental cooperative. We host fishing clinics for disabled vets, educate kids on water conservation, and the festival last year raised 80 grand for scholarships. You want a moral? Here's mine, though. It took me a while to see it. Some people get so obsessed with what they hate, they never stop to understand how things actually work. Delilah thought she could erase me from her view. She never stopped to ask where her coffee water came from. You can have all the authority, all the lawyers, all the HOA bylaws in the world, but if you don't understand the land you're standing on or the people living beside you, you're just digging your own grave, one bad decision at a time. Sometimes justice looks like prison bars. Sometimes it looks like a community healed. Either way, it always finds a way to balance the scales. You tell me, where's the line between fighting for what's right and just fighting because you can't stand to lose? Have you ever tangled with someone drunk on authority? What happened? I want to hear your story, and if you've got an HOA horror story, drop it below. Because trust me, Delilah isn't the only one out there making decisions without understanding the consequences.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.